At 3:47 a.m., deep inside Russian territory, over 4,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, cargo truck doors silently slide open. What emerges will rewrite every rule of modern warfare. In the next 12 minutes, 41 Russian strategic bombers, aircraft worth more than the GDP of small nations, will burn. The weapons? Consumer drones. The cost? Less than a used car. This is Operation Spider's Web, and after today, no military base on Earth is truly safe. The asymmetric warfare revolution. For 3 years, the world has watched a war that shouldn't exist by Cold War logic. Ukraine, facing an adversary with vastly superior resources, has survived not through matching Russia's firepower, but by making expensive things obsolete. The mathematics of modern asymmetric warfare are brutal. A first-person view drone, the kind hobbyists race through obstacle courses, costs between $400 and $1,000 to build. It can destroy a Russian T-90M tank worth $4 million, an artillery piece worth $2 million, and air defense system worth $30 million. By 2025, Ukraine is producing 2.5 million military drones annually. Russia manufactures even more. Both sides have recognized a fundamental truth. When defense costs 1,000 times more than offense, traditional military power collapses. But there was always a sanctuary. Russia's strategic bomber fleet, 295 Bears, 160 Blackjacks, 22M3 Backfires, operated from bases hundreds, even thousands of kilometers deep in Russian territory. These aircraft, some nuclear-capable, launched devastating cruise missile strikes against Ukrainian cities with impunity. They were untouchable, protected by distance, air defenses, and Russia's vast geography. Until they weren't. The Spider's Web, planning the impossible. 18 months before Operation Spider's Web executed, Ukrainian security service operatives began planning something unprecedented. Their targets? 5 military air bases spanning 5 time zones across the entire breadth of Russia. Olenya Airbase near Murmansk, 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine. Ivanovo-Severny, home to Russia's precious A-50 radar aircraft. Diaghilevo, just outside Moscow. And impossibly, Bela Air Base in Irkutsk, Siberia, 4,300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Intelligence confirmed that these bases housed Russia's Strategic Aviation Corps. Dozens of Tu-95s, Tu-22M3s, and Tu-160 Blackjacks, the aircraft that had been raining Ha-101 cruise missiles on Ukrainian cities for 3 years. They were untouchable, protected by distance, air defenses, and Russia's vast geography. Until they weren't. The weapons themselves were unremarkable. FPV drones built with inexpensive components, controlled via open-source autopilot systems like ArduPilot. Each cost between $600 and $1,000, about the price of a decent laptop. Ukrainian operatives concealed the disassembled drones inside wooden modular cabins, which were loaded onto standard cargo trucks. Through a sophisticated network involving unwitting Russian civilian participants, these ordinary-looking vehicles crossed into Russia over months. Commercial satellite imagery would show nothing unusual, just routine cargo deliveries. By May 2025, the pieces were in place. Launch trucks positioned themselves within a few kilometers of each target airbase. The drones were reassembled. The pilots, safely in Ukraine, thousands of kilometers away, prepared for one of the most audacious operations in military history. The attack. 12 minutes that changed warfare. June 1st, 2025, 3:47 a.m. local time at each base. The timing was calculated to strike before dawn across all 5 time zones. In the pre-dawn darkness, cargo truck roofs opened remotely. 117 drones lifted into the Russian sky. Each had its own pilot, operating via 4G and LTE networks using the same cellular infrastructure that Russian civilians use for phone calls. The drones flew low, below radar detection altitude, using Ardupilot's autonomous flight capabilities to navigate. At Belaya Airbase in Siberia, the attack achieved complete surprise. Satellite imagery later confirmed the methodical devastation. Ukrainian operators had studied these aircraft for months. They knew exactly where to strike. The drones targeted the most vulnerable points on each bomber, fuel tanks in the wings. Video released by Ukraine's security service shows T-95 bombers armed with Kh-101 cruise missiles erupting into enormous fireballs. The aircraft had been fueled and armed, preparing for strikes against Ukraine. Now they were cremating themselves. At Olenia, 4 T-95 bombers and an An-12 transport aircraft were destroyed. At Ivanovo-Severne, FPV drones struck 2 A-50 airborne warning and control aircraft. Each A-50 costs over $300 million. The precision was surgical. The devastation was total. Within 12 minutes, dozens of drones struck parked bombers across thousands of kilometers. The wide dispersion of attacks meant Russia's response was fragmented, confused. Russian officials declared states of emergency at Engels and Morozovsk airbases, but by then, the damage was catastrophic. The aftermath, counting the cost. When the smoke cleared and satellite imagery analysts finished their assessments, the scale of the disaster became clear. According to Ukrainian officials, 41 Russian aircraft were hit. At least 13 strategic bombers were confirmed destroyed through independent satellite verification.
7 to 8 Tu-95 strategic bombers gone. 4 Tu-22M3 supersonic bombers destroyed. Multiple Tu-160 Blackjacks damaged. 2 A-50 radar aircraft struck. 1 An-12 transport lost. The mathematics are staggering. A Tu-95 bomber costs approximately $125 million. A Tu-22M3 runs about $100 million. The A-50 radar aircraft, over $300 million. Conservative estimates place the destroyed or damaged aircraft value at $7 billion. The attacking force? 117 drones at roughly $1,000 each. Total cost? Approximately $117,000. Add operational expenses, reconnaissance, months of planning, and the entire operation likely cost Ukraine less than $500,000. That's a cost asymmetry of roughly 14,000 to 1. But the real impact goes far beyond dollars. These aircraft are irreplaceable. The Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 haven't been manufactured since the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. There are no production lines, no skilled workers who remember how to build them. These aren't just lost aircraft, they're lost capability that Russia cannot regenerate. According to the Financial Times, the damaged and destroyed aircraft represent approximately 20% of Russia's operational long-range aviation fleet. Ukrainian President Zelensky claimed the operation hit 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers. The strategic embarrassment cuts deeper. Many of these bombers are nuclear capable. Their destruction punches a hole in Russia's nuclear triad, the combination of land-based missiles, submarine-launched missiles, and strategic bombers that forms Russia's deterrent posture. Tactical genius, how they did it. Operation Spider's Web succeeded because it exploited every vulnerability in modern military defense systems. The drones operated in what military theorists call the air littoral, the slice of atmosphere above ground forces but below where traditional fighters and air defenses operate. They flew too low for traditional radar-guided defenses, too fast for infantry weapons, too cheap to waste expensive missiles on. And they used Russia's own cellular infrastructure against them. The drones operated via 4G and LTE networks, the same cell towers Russian civilians use. This provided reliable, low-latency control over vast distances. ArduPilot's open-source autopilot software handled autonomous flight stability, allowing operators in Ukraine to focus on precise targeting. The simultaneous multi-target coordination was crucial. By hitting 5 bases across 5 time zones at nearly the same moment, Ukraine prevented Russia from reacting. By the time air defenses at one base realized they were under attack, all bases were already burning. Base security forces were overwhelmed. Videos show multiple near-simultaneous impacts across wide areas of runway. Small arms fire from perimeter guards was useless. The drones were too small, too fast, too numerous.
Conventional systems like Panzer and S-300 were designed for traditional threats: aircraft, helicopters, cruise missiles, not for swarms of small quadcopters appearing from nearby positions at treetop altitude. The new rules of warfare. Operation Spider's Web isn't an anomaly, it's the blueprint. When the U.S. Navy disclosed in January 2025 that it had fired over 200 missiles costing hundreds of millions of dollars to repel Houthi drone attacks in the Red Sea, they revealed the same fundamental problem Russia now faces. Defense is unsustainably expensive. A Patriot missile costs $3 million. It shoots down a Houthi drone that costs a few $1,000s. Ukraine fires SM-2 interceptors at $2 million each at Russian Shahed drones that cost $38,000. This is warfare where David doesn't just defeat Goliath, he bankrupts him, where the attacker only needs to succeed once, while the defender must succeed every time, where mass-produced attritable weapons inflict strategic damage that traditional military power cannot prevent. American military planners are terrified of the implications. Rand Corporation warned about this vulnerability 30 years ago in a report titled "Check 6 Begins on the Ground." Now the nightmare scenario is real. Consider Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, home to America's 20 B-2 stealth bombers. Each aircraft costs $2 billion. They're stored not in hardened bunkers, but in environmental shelters designed for climate control, not defense. A swarm of FPV drones could devastate America's most strategic asset in minutes. Bases deep inside seemingly safe territory are now vulnerable. Distance is no longer protection. Expensive aircraft parked on tarmacs are targets. Every military in the world is recalculating what secure means. The race for countermeasures has begun. Electronic warfare jamming, directed energy weapons, lasers that cost $12 per shot instead of $3 million for a missile, hardened shelters, dispersed basing, active patrols around installations. But all of it is expensive. Every dollar spent protecting aircraft is a dollar not spent at the front line. Russia now faces the nightmare of fortifying dozens of air bases across 11 time zones. The economic burden of defense has shifted decisively toward the attacker. Conclusion: the forever war. Operation Spider's Web destroyed more than aircraft. It destroyed an assumption about warfare that held for nearly a century, that strategic assets deep behind friendly lines were safe, that military power was proportional to industrial capacity and defense spending, that technology gave the wealthy nation an insurmountable advantage.
The 2025 Global Peace Index reports 59 state-based conflicts worldwide, the highest number since World War II. In just 2 years, companies manufacturing drones exploded from 6 to over 200. Ukraine alone expects to produce 2.5 million drones this year. This technology doesn't remain in the hands of nation-states. The same FPV drones used in Operation Spider's Web are commercially available. The same autopilot software is open source. The same cellular networks exist everywhere. Insurgent groups in Syria, Somalia, and beyond are already using similar systems. Warfare has entered an age where conflicts have no clear endpoint, the so-called forever wars. When defense costs 1,000 times more than attack, when every military asset must be constantly protected, when small adversaries can drag conflicts into decade-long stalemates, how does war ever end? The answer is, we don't know yet. What we do know is that June 1st, 2025 marks a turning point. 117 drones, costing less than a mid-tier sedan, destroyed $7 billion of irreplaceable military hardware. They did it from 4,000 kilometers away, using civilian infrastructure with consumer electronics. They struck simultaneously across 5 time zones with surgical precision. They proved that in modern warfare, ingenuity matters more than industry. Speed matters more than size. Asymmetry is the new symmetry. The sky is no longer a sanctuary. The rear area is no longer secure. And every general staff in every military on Earth is looking at their strategic assets and wondering, how do we defend against this? That question doesn't have a good answer yet. And that's what should terrify us all.